What's up, Cosmetic family?
Thank you for joining us on the Cosmetic Podcast.
Cosmetic means being a person or thing that gives rise to a phenomena that is dynamic or energizing.
We're tackling topics and telling the truth.
I'm Keith Benson.
And I'm Rodrigo Ross.
And so today we're going to talk about activism in after school.
That's a mouthful.
That's a mouthful.
Activating activism in after school.
Well, so this is, if we want our children to grow and be thoughtful about those things that they're engaged in when they get older, right? Because we want them to be engaged citizens.
Yep.
We have to be able to teach them now about being a part of this social change.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so here's one of the big secrets that's not such a secret, right? Kids know what's going on. They are keenly aware of when there are shifts in the social fabric and when things are happening around them. And they also have the capacity to be very upset about it. I mean, deeply upset. And so why not use these opportunities to help kids learn to flex that muscle and grow and engage in some of these things that are making them upset?
But one of the biggest opportunities is through after school.
Yes.
So, according to youth.gov, it said nearly 10 million kids are in after-school programs.
That's a lot of kids.
That's a
10
whole lot of
million children. That's a lot of kids.
10.2.
To be exact.
To be exact.
Okay.
And so, our after-school programs, for the most part, they allow kids to explore.
Yeah.
They have different stations that they can roam to and be able to play. But right now, man, it just seems like that's a little vanilla in comparison to kids being involved in this, having some type of social conscience.
Yeah, a missed opportunity, right? Like if we have the children and we have this captive audience, so to speak, why not start infusing activities and things and conversations in that after school space that helps them build their activism?
Because the young people who work in these after-school programs, a lot of times they're in college, maybe fresh out of college.
Yeah.
And they're still exploring themselves.
Right.
And a lot of them have a voice. They have passion. You only work it with kids because you have passion.
Absolutely.
Now, you can try to do it for the dollar all you want, but that won't last long.
That's not what's driving you into that field.
And so these kids that have this passion, it typically, spans to having passion for young people, so that's why they work.
Yep.
And then that probably spills over in some other ways. They want to see these kids protected.
Yeah.
And in some places, especially with our black and brown workers out here, they are looking at these young kids that they work with, and probably in some lens as if they're their own. And like, what's the world look like when they grow up?
Yeah, and many of the folks who work in those after school settings, number one, they are the social activists now that are really changing things in society. I mean, we did a podcast a while ago talking about, youth, right? And the power of youth and being able to change things. But also many times they're in that phase of their life where they really are conscious about leaving a legacy, right? And helping the next generation. And so when they're working with these kids in these after school settings, they want to start to help them build, and they want to pour into them so that those children will eventually grow up and replace them and do some things in society.
Because one of the things we want to make sure of is that they don't make a decision like some of our founding fathers made, right? Like our founding fathers made this decision like, it was okay to enslave people to a place that it took 400 years to begin to change. Like
I think they thought that was an excellent idea. I don't really think it was an excellent idea though, but they thought that.
Yeah, so 400 years now we got generation after generation after generation of groups of people, minds that are just really messed up right now.
Systems, right? Whole systems that are built on that concept that even though, the acting in of itself is illegal, the systems were never modified. And so on some levels, it's still perpetuated.
Yeah, the other day I was doing some research on something and I was looking at Jim Crow laws. And when you look at those in the different buckets that they're in, it's like they didn't make sense. And so we got to get our young people to a place where they can see what's wrong.
Right.
Like you help coaching them, teaching them, training them to get to a place to discover about what's good, what's bad, and what we need to have changed.
Yeah, and so, after school kids are keenly aware, like they really do understand this this concept of equitable treatment. Have you ever been around a bunch of kids and you do something and the first thing you start, that's not fair.
Right.
That's not fair, right? So kids understand equitable treatment and they're aware of the things that are going on in their environment. So marry that youthful curiosity and real time, world events to help kids begin to develop to speak out or speak up against certain things.
And there's a lot of different ways that you can be able to do this. I mean, some of it's just catching those teachable moments.
Yeah.
If someone comes from a more resource family than another, there's probably some privilege that the young person may display.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned about being fair. It's an opportunity when that thing comes up.
Yeah.
Like pull the kid aside. We ain't got to call them out. We ain't got to embarrass them, but we got to be able to address those type of issues in a program.
Yeah, and the other thing about that is taking advantage of using opportunities to help kids see that everyone experiences life differently. So I had a school teacher friend of mine who, was here in Texas, and then the week when we had that snowstorm and it was cold, and people really went through adverse situations, whether they didn't have power, they didn't have water, they had to leave their homes or whatever the case may be, and the kids were out of school for a week. And so this teacher friend of mine really began this campaign right before the kids went back to school and said, look, teachers, I know that you have not seen these kids in some instances almost 2 weeks and you want to re-engage and reconnect, but do not make it a classroom activity to ask the kids, what did you do over the storm break, right? Because that will amplify the differences. You may have some kids in your classroom who didn't have power, didn't have heat, didn't have anywhere to go, struggled to eat, and you may have some other kids who didn't, as opposed to the teachers using that opportunity to say, let's talk about why some people experience this storm different. Let's talk about the things that go on in our communities where, Johnny over here may have not lost any power or anything because he lives in a certain type of neighborhood, but that Jimmy over here really did feel the brunt of this storm because he lives in a less resourced area.
Yeah. One of the things that caretakers can do also is that how do you set up your room? Mm-hmm. Nothing like going into a space and you just don't see any diverse materials.
Oh, yeah.
So if there are dolls in a corner, like all the dolls white.
Yeah.
The books. I was going through something with somebody the other day, and it was like we had like 3 or 4 different stacks of books. Uh-huh. And at the eye, it was like, man, there's no person of color that are in these books right here.
Wow.
And it's like, so if you got a program and you're not exposing the kids to diverse, games, diverse toys, books, videos, whatever it may be, then that's a place that, like, you can improve that on the next run to Walmart.
That's low-hanging fruit, huh? Right. That's an easy fix right there. Some of the other things that you can do are let children have a voice and actually listen to what they have to say. Now, many times, because kids are learning how to manage their emotions, they're probably not so eloquent and they may use all kind of words and ramble and this and that, but just listen and give them a voice and start to normalize for kids that it's okay for you to express when you feel like something is not fair to you, or you feel like you don't have access, or you're speaking out and being an ally for someone else. I mean, there are so many people who still subscribe to that mindset that children should be seen and not heard, right? Hear my grandmother in my ear right now.
I've not heard that.
Woo! But, there is a difference between giving children a voice and letting them weigh in, and also teaching them to have respect and boundaries and be polite and have manners.
Because like a base exercise that you could do also is just like write your congressman.
Right. That's good.
The situation that Texas went through, which, we hope that doesn't come back for another 20, 15 years, whatever case may be, of like,
ever.
Why did our power go out? Like, that's a...
Right. Because when you dig down in it, it was all about decisions that people made or didn't make for an entire population. But did they really have the whole population's best interest in mind when they made it? Wasn't, it was a failure of the power grid, but that failure didn't have to occur if certain individuals would have made different decisions long time ago.
Yeah, and so it's like how you frame up that type of conversation with your kids to be able to help them to put it in writing and do a letter writing campaign.
Yeah, and then that's real time, right? Like, this is a congressman that's sitting right now. Like, I can imagine as a kid, if I wrote to a congressman and I actually got a reply, I would feel all kinds of fancy.
Right.
Like, oh, they answered me. Oh, okay. Well, that's all right.
Yeah, so I mean, kids are very curious about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
In a situation like your after-school programs, your day camps, wherever your kids are being cared for, you really have a unique opportunity to be able to set up a lot of teachable moments for the young people.
Yeah. And some of those teachable moments come through service. So I'm gonna tell the truth right here. I'm gonna tell the truth because we family. When I was a young program director and I was in childcare and I had a bunch of kids, many times I would do a service project just because I needed those rowdy babies to do something. Like okay, look, y'all, we're gonna go out here and we're gonna do this community pickup and this community cleanup, and I would find the biggest field I could find so them babies could just run around for a minute and get some of them out, and that was just a way to calm them down and this and that. I wish I would have known then in a much deeper way how to connect that and help those kids understand about this idea around service and volunteerism and the philanthropy and giving of your time and of your talent, because that's a form of helping kids flex their activism muscle too.
Right.
Like we're not just cleaning up to pick. Well, we was, because them babies was rowdy and I just needed to work that out. We were just picking up stuff to pick up stuff, but we could have talked about how come there is more trash in certain areas, or how come, what's wrong with the systems where the garbage trucks don't come to certain areas more than they go to other areas, or there are not receptacles in the street, or it doesn't look as nice. Like we could have really went a little deeper with that. Right.
I mean, and way back then when you were the program director.
Well, you didn't have to add, really? Did you add the way back then? And the way he is really laughing so hard right now. Just, it was not that way and not that back and not that then.
Today, it's about being intentional.
Don't say it today like this was AD or BC. Like
I apologize.
I don't think you do.
I was not trying.
I think you were.
To throw shade at all.
You couldn't even say that with a straight face. I think you were.
But we got to be intentional about what we are teaching our young people in these programs, because there's parents can't pay $50, $60, $70 a week to be able to put the child in the program just for the babysitting purposes.
Yeah.
Right? We got to be very purposeful, very intentional about being able to teach them. And so some of the tips that, we've already talked about is that, allow them to have teachable moments on the spot. Yep. Talk about maybe writing your congressman. And these are things that can be carried on at home as well. And so mom, dad, here's the activities that we did this week. We wrote a letter to the congressman, and hopefully that mom and dad may share in that also.
Right,
maybe it's taking a child to city council just to see how it operates. They may not clue it all in together, right? But just exposing them to opportunity so they can be more social conscious.
Yeah, and so the fine line is, we're not advocating that in the after-school space, the staff that work in the after-school space start to set the value sets for these kids, outside of what their parents say. Like, it's okay if you hit a fairly controversial topic to say, I don't really know what to say. Like, thank you for bringing that up. You're on to something. I don't really know what to say. Or, you know what? I really think that's a conversation that you should have with your parents. But don't disregard it, and don't be scared to take the opportunity because you're so nervous about stepping on landmines, so to speak. Like, I don't want to tell the kids something and then their parents, because at the heart of it all, there's this human-centered, this caring notion that we just want to have things that make these young people caring individuals, make them want to speak out against things against humanity, and then the nuance of all that you absolutely can leave up to the parent,
because you can teach all those things. You don't have to say, mom and dad, what are your values about this or that, right? But just being kind to people, caring, those are basic core things that you absolutely can do. And so how do you help kids to just be able to demonstrate those things, those character traits in the community?
I will say that when my children were really small and they were in after school, as a parent, I'm trying to work, I'm trying to take care of kids, and they're in all these sports, and they're in this and that, and then I may have the best of intentions to talk about something with them. I was like, ooh, we need to sit down, but it just kind of gets away from you. But when those subjects get breached in the after school setting, and then the kid on the ride home or on your walk home, or even when you get home, they bring it up. Oh, today in after school we talked about this. That's kind of that was that trigger for me. Like, oh, I wanted to talk to y'all about that. Well, what did you say? Well, what did you hear? What did your friend say? And it really helped me as a parent make sure that we address those topics and those situations that I, sometimes inadvertently it just got away from because of the busyness of life.
And one of those things that we can grab hold to with kids is that around philanthropy, right? Like getting them to this space.
Who doesn't like to give cute kids money?
Yeah. Colleague Rebecca Lee.
Yes.
She had Cooper on Instagram.
He's so adorable.
Cooper went out there and raised more money in one day.
Swimming. Cooper was just kicking around in that pool doing what he do, and that Cooper's so cute doing that. Here's some money, baby.
Hey,
philanthropy.
$800 he raised in one day.
Just going to swim in the pool.
I think I might ask Cooper to be a board member.
I think you should. Cooper raising more money than some of these grown folks. I wonder if people would give me money to just go swim.
And so when we talk about philanthropy and kids, so making a cute video is one thing.
Yes.
You can do toy drives, right? Mm-hmm. Or you can do clothing drive. But something that, and while I'm talking about here too, is not mom and dad go get a toy to put in the toy box.
Right.
Like, hey, clean up the toy box, your kid's toy box.
Yeah.
And say, hey, what haven't you played with within the last month or so? Like they can start from that place right there to teach them how to give at an early age.
Yeah, this act of giving and being a little bit selfless. Yeah. The other thing that, parents can teach kids about is this idea around campaigning, right? You can have kids make signs, whatever you subscribe to, whatever you believe in, get them involved in the process, help them to understand that, sometimes government and politics don't happen to you. You influence them, right? Like you have a say in how these things shape out and get kids involved. And that helps them shape what their belief system is. And I'll tell you, there are many adults that I know, because their parents got them involved young in this whole civic engagement and campaigning, it shaped their views, and their views actually dissented from their parents, but they could still have a very loving relationship because the parents know, look, I gave you the information, I put you in the spaces, and you were able to make an informed decision, and I respect that as an adult.
Yeah, you got to.
Yeah.
You got to be able to respect that.
Yeah.
I mean, and then there's a space of how do you teach them to advocate? Mm-hmm. There was many parents that took the kids to protest, peaceful protesting in some different ways. If that's not your thing, all right, not a problem.
Okay.
But what are other ways? We talked about, writing letters to your congressman or your city council member. That's a way of being able to do that.
Yeah.
Helping the kid to be able to understand local government so that they know how to be able to move. Our excellent youth and government program, where we're teaching kids to create and debate bills at the local level as well as at the state level. Those are great skills to be able to teach because they're not only going to use them in the community, but they're going to use them in the workplace. Yeah. They're going to use them in after school program as well. And as we talk about after school, yes, we're talking about the 5, the 6, the 7-year-old. We're not talking about the 16, 17, 18-year-old teenagers that's about to graduate. It's like, how do we dig down and get kids early to be able to know how to advocate.
Yeah, before you have to do some kind of course corrective measures. Right. And the other thing about advocacy is that when you get kids to build that muscle, they'll start using it in everyday settings, right? And so if they come across another kid who is maybe saying something that's inappropriate to another kid, or if they're having a conversation that they know is hurtful to a certain demographic, kids will begin to call that out, right? And to start charging their peers over, like, hey, you can't talk to them, or don't say that, that's not nice, or you shouldn't, be like that, or whatever. Like, they begin to use that advocacy in really everyday, simple, but effective ways.
And the thing about advocating is that you can do it in the most gentle way. Mm-hmm. It's not, sometimes people think of that as a very aggressive type of word. Yeah, that's true. And it's not. You can very, very gently to be able to do it.
Do you advocate for me in a nice, are you nice about it?
Hey, you know what? I advocate for those things that are right. And then so if you're on that side of right, hey, you got a champion here.
That was a kind of shady answer, but I'm going to move on. Did you just imply that I'm mostly not right? So, yeah, no, I don't really advocate.
See, you're getting inside your head right there. Okay.
Well, teaching kids to volunteer, right? In the after-school setting, you can teach them to volunteer, like getting kids to raise their hand. And you know, it's an amazing opportunity to help kids understand the difference between volunteering and being paid for, you know, a service that's valuable. Like, what an awesome opportunity to teach kids the difference and help them understand, or to really dissect and talk through, you know, when certain people don't really have the luxury of volunteering, right? And so there is data out there that says that Black and brown folks, low socioeconomic status, those in poverty, don't volunteer as much as their more well-to-do counterparts, and surely their white counterparts that are more affluent. Well, it's not that they don't want to, it's they don't have that luxury. Like, I don't have time to be out here doing this kind of stuff. I'm so busy trying to use all of my time to make ends meet. And so helping kids understand this idea of volunteering, but also talking through some of the systemic things that keep certain demographics from appearing to be less apt to volunteer than others.
Well, our hope today is that you've been able to grab some tips to be able to, one, share with your after-school program, or even share with your own child, bring somebody else into the fold of things. You may be out there volunteering and mentoring with somebody. Use these tips. I mean, things around campaigning, philanthropy, advocating, volunteering, protesting. While those things seem sometimes that picture can look very aggressive, there are a lot of different ways that you can be able to be a champion for another young person, to be able to teach them in these different areas right here. Yeah,
help kidify some of these more adult notions. And if you want to learn more about ways that you can activate activism in the after-school space, check out an article we did in Afterschool Today magazine. It drops in the spring 2021 edition. That's on March 17th. We're feeling a little fancy. We got a whole article up in a magazine and such.
I tell you, that was, you know, your writing skills are kind of tight.
I know.
Hey, look, fam. Hey, thanks for listening to Cosmetic.
Well, we are tackling topics and telling the truth.
Subscribe and listen to us weekly.
And don't be shy. Give us a review.
And as always,
be dynamic.
Be phenomenal.
Be cosmetic.